back to They Did What? Your source for the internet's craziest, most entertaining stories, where I go over them, analyze them, and most certainly make fun of them. Today, I'm going to go over a story titled, Is She Cheating or Am I Going Insane? And a shout out to AM for sending this story. And guys, this is all about a guy who is now presently hiring a private investigator and consulting attorneys to get rid of his wife after obviously catching her in the act. You're going to see how in this story, guys, initially this guy set up security cameras outside of his house because crime has been rising in his area. You know, he's protecting the house. And instead of crime, he's seeing a different crime, a crime of passion, or the beginning of that on camera. But of course, when he tries to confront her, the gaslighting, all the BS, mind games, all that mental gymnastics from her part, big surprise here. But guess what? Eventually, she's just too cocky and gets herself busted. And I'll be going to go over here, guys, just to make the point that you always have to, you can trust, but you got to verify. And if something doesn't seem right, let alone after you got evidence, you got to do some digging. And even if your gut's telling you something's wrong, listen to it. Because it's amazing in these stories how these wives and girlfriends, they're up to no good. They get caught in just the gaslighting and the lying and how they just will not blink and how convincing they can be. And of course, when they get busted, then there's the waterworks and all. So it starts off, says here, a few months ago, I installed a security camera outside our front door, primarily for safety, prompted by a crime in our neighborhood. It wasn't installed out of suspicion towards my wife. So in other words, imagine if he didn't install this. About a week ago, my wife came home from work and casually mentioned taking public transit, which is a common mode of transportation for her, along with the occasional Uber rides if she works very late at night. I didn't think anything of it at the time. Well, the next day, while reviewing the camera footage, I was looking to see if the package was dropped off that I had delivered. I saw the video footage of her arrival from the previous night. The camera captures our front door and part of the street. It showed her walking up to the door, pausing to look across the street, smiling and waving to the car as it pulled away, and then entering the house. It strongly suggested she had been dropped off. Yeah, last time I was using Uber, I didn't go waving to the Uber driver goodbye or anything like that. And this is the wife says she's taking public transportation home. Well, I casually asked her if she had taken an Uber ride home the night before. She initially insisted that she had taken transit. When I mentioned the camera footage, she shifted, suggesting maybe it was an Uber and she had forgotten. No, she didn't. What a load of crap. Well, here's the footage. Sensing something was off, I jokingly asked if she typically waved goodbye to Uber drivers from our doorstep as they waited for her to get inside. I bet she froze in place. Her blood was boiling. Well, this led to further hesitation before she finally admitted it was a coworker. The coworker is a man who she has previously mentioned in passing when talking about work or a project that she's involved in, who has dropped her off after they had worked late. Well, then why'd you say it was transit, honey? And remember, guys, I've said this a lot of times, particularly in the other channel, when guys mention other women, never notice how it makes your girlfriends or wives crazy? Even though it could be just, the 65-year-old secretary at your office or some 300-pound woman that, whatever. Someone you have no attraction for and they get jealous and lose their minds. Well, that's because they know when they talk about other men, certainly bringing them up often, that's because they like those men. So they just assume you, as the guy, it's the same thing, when a guy could just be casually talking about something that meant no big deal. So he should pay attention to that. Naturally, I felt really off. Her story went from transit to maybe Uber to I forgot to actually a coworker. This is when I'd be sitting her down and say, we're going to have a serious talk. What's going on? And laying it out. I asked if this was the first time he dropped her off, and she said yes. Okay, you heard it, first time dropping her off. I point out how unusual it seemed to forget being dropped off for the very first time by a coworker, especially when it wasn't her usual routine. This is when she became defensive, accusing me of calling her a liar and claiming it was just an honest mistake due to being tired. Bull crap. There you go, twisting it around, getting defensive, calling me a liar. Well, because you are a liar, sugar. While I tried to accept this, I couldn't shake the feeling that her reaction and multiple explanations were illogical. This is a girl you're dealing with. Of course it's illogical. She's lying, man. End of story. While unable to let it go, I reviewed the camera footage from the week prior. What I discovered, she had been dropped off by the same car multiple times the week alone. There you go. You think the idiot would think that, okay, he has footage of me doing this last night. I don't know, he has footage of last week? Nope. Okay, man, there you go. Expanding my search to the past month's recordings as they reset monthly, I found this scenario repeated 2 to 3 times a week. I also discovered instances where the same car picked her up early in the morning, specifically on days when I left for work early. Bro, yes, something's going on. Don't buy her bullshit. Well, I confronted her again, stating that the footage showed frequent occurrences of her being dropped off by the same car. She looked like a deer in headlights when I said that. She downplayed it all again, saying it was just her coworker and I was making a big deal out of nothing. You're a compulsive liar, lady. You're a pathological liar. But of course, do you really think she's going to admit she's cheating on him and something's going on? No. And I guarantee you, if she finally did, she'd say, it's your fault. You're controlling. You're insecure. You made me cheat. That's what's going to happen next. Don't buy into it, man. Get a PI. Start talking to a lawyer. Well, I explained that the hiding and lying about it were what was concerning to me, not necessarily the act of being dropped off. Why all the secrecy if it was innocent? There's a good question. She became defensive again, attempting to turn it back on me by suggesting my checking the footage was obsessive and paranoid. Okay, baby. Let me put it this way. Let's just say, for argument's sake, that some pretty chick from his office was suddenly dropping him off a lot and picking him up when she left for work early. Are you telling me you don't think that she'd have a problem with this? You bet your ass. Guaranteed. And if he said that she was gaslighting, and if he said the same thing to her, she'd lose her mind. After an hour-long argument, smack, you're an idiot to sit around and argue with her over this for an hour. Are you out of your mind? You ain't getting anywhere with that. After an hour-long argument, she finally agreed that, yeah, it was weird, I guess, and that she had to mention it. I asked her directly if there was anything romantic or inappropriate going on with a coworker. Dude, like, you're really going to get the answer you want out of her. She denied it, calling me, wait for it, crazy. Of course. We have an open phone policy, though I've never felt the need to use it until this point. I asked to see her phone, and she handed it over. If she handed it over without putting up a fight, she wiped it, anticipating this. Well, I looked at her messages and found nothing that seemed suspicious or indicative of an affair with this coworker. And I bet you she has probably had a big shit-eating grin on her face. Like, see? I told you. Well, she was anticipating this. She was covering her tracks. Well, despite this, I still have trouble believing her. Good. I would too. Her initial lies, the shiftiness, the attempt to blame me for being suspicious, and the eventual half-admission that have eroded my trust. I also noticed that since the day I found out about the coworker dropping her off, the coworker has completely stopped dropping her off or picking her up based on the camera footage. Shocker. She's going back to playing things like normal for a while. To me, this looks like she warned him or tipped him off on my suspicions. Maybe even meeting further away from the house where the camera can't see. Aha, there's an idea. Well, I can't let this thing go, and I'm also confused because outside the specific issue and her weird behavior when confronted, I haven't noticed the typical signs associated with infidelity. Because she's very good at covering her tracks. If you didn't have that camera installed, this could have been going on much, much longer. Eventually, she would have screwed up. You know, she would have felt so comfortable and cocky with not getting caught, she would stop covering her tracks. But right now, she's doing a good job covering her tracks, except for the camera footage. She isn't secretive with her phone, she hasn't become distant, and her general behavior hasn't changed in ways that would make me question her fidelity. We are both incredibly busy with demanding jobs and a 3-year-old and 1-year-old child who keeps us on our toes, which naturally limits our time together as a couple, but there hasn't been a shift in our dynamic that raised red flags before this. I feel like I'm going insane here, and I'm really struggling to find a logical explanation for this behavior that does not lead to the conclusion that she is cheating on me. Brother, let's just say for argument's sake she actually wasn't getting physical. So she's lying to you, and that ain't a part of a healthy marriage. Okay? I know the married guys are like, ha 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 ha, lying all the time. But seriously, you can't trust her. Hire a PI. I can't discuss this with my friends and family without feeling like I'm making her look bad. No, she's making herself look bad. I'm turning to anonymous help, hoping for some perspective on whether my reaction was warranted or if I'm letting paranoia take over. So, before I get on to his updates here, what's going on here, to no surprise, back up what he's thinking. No, you're not the a-hole for or being paranoid or anything like that. Look, all that evidence is there. The constant the dude dropping her off and picking her up and her lying about it and the deer in the headlights and all that. And then also twisting around, getting defensive and making you out to be the bad guy. Man, it just goes on and on. It's over, man. But get some concrete evidence. Hire a PI. Talk to some lawyers. Life is too short. And yeah, you got little kids. They're 3 and 1 year old. I mean, they're barely going to notice anything going on. You guys split up. But anyhow, now for the updates. Let's see if she's so innocent. He said, well, this morning she had a later start to her day. This is not unusual. So I left for work before her. But after dropping the kids off at childcare, instead of driving to work, I came back home and parked further up the street to avoid being seen. Aha. Let's see what's going on. Well, when she eventually left the house, she walked up the street and turned onto the main road where she usually catches public transportation. I followed at a distance and saw her getting into his car that was parked there. There you go. It's not rocket science. She just is going to go out of the area, out of the angle of the camera. Up until then, I had held on to hope that she may have felt uncomfortable about these pickup and drop-offs after our conversation, and she might have found a way to politely end them. But now seeing her deliberately walk around the corner to meet his car, out of the view of our camera, has confirmed that at the very least my wife is actively collaborating with another man to conceal their interactions from me, her husband. A faithful partner would never do anything like this. Bro, it's over. Why do you think she's protecting this so much? I'm heartbroken and shaking with rage, but I won't say anything to her. I'm going to hire a PI to find out the full extent of the relationship and then proceed from there. Thank you to everyone who offered their advice. There you go. She's toast, but we're still not done yet. Next update. He says, I also wanted to share that I have confirmed the affair. I waited outside her office building and saw her leave at 12:30 p.m. with him. They went across the street to get food, then drove to a nearby park and stayed in his car. They ate lunch, chatted, laughed, and made out. There you go. Not just kissing, they sat in the car and made out like effing teenagers. I took a video of it, then they left and went back to work. Okay, man, time to go nuclear. You got on camera. I'm sure the PI will be useful. He'll find out more things. But yeah, gather your evidence. Just keep gathering, act like you don't know anything's going on, and then strike hard. Go full Cobra Kai, no mercy. I don't know how I stopped myself from approaching them and attacking him then and there. The thought of doing something rash and losing my kids is probably what stopped me. Yes, that's all it would take, and you have been arrested. He's a scumbag for knowingly cheating with a married woman, but she's a piece of crap too. Don't do anything like that. Look at the big picture. I'm now at home and struggling to process what I saw. I feel completely devastated and a profound sense of loss for our family, our children's sense of security, and my own self-worth. I've never felt so completely hopeless in my life before. I'll keep together and move forward for the sake of my kids because they are innocent in all this. I'm currently contacting divorce attorneys and scheduling initial consultations. I do not plan to confront my wife about what I saw until I'm advised by an attorney. I'll keep my distance until then. Good, dude. And notice he said I'm consulting multiple attorneys. That's awesome because if I'm not mistaken, once you consult one, even if you don't hire them, then she can't. You know, I was thinking of the episode in The Sopranos when Tony Soprano was doing that to Carmela. So talk to every fucking lawyer in town. It's worth it. Every good one, at least. And they'll know what you're doing, but who cares? And even if they charge you a bit, it's worth it. And then find the good one, do what they say, and strike hard. The volume of responses and attention my posts have received is incredibly overwhelming. While I'm grateful for the support, reading comments and different opinions while processing the betrayal is too much right now. I'll delete my account, but will leave my post up so I can review the advice later, and when I'm in a calmer, happier headspace. I wouldn't say, well, not happier, calmer headspace. At this moment, I'm unable to make significant decisions and will rely on legal advice from my attorney to guide me through the next steps. Thank you to everyone who offers support and advice. Well, there you go. I'm sorry it happened to him, but again, how interesting. By him putting up the cameras for security around the house, because obviously crime was picking up in his area, he caught the worst crime of all, that betrayal, But notice how he described in detail the lying and then the gaslighting and making him out to be crazy and, all that. How common is that in these stories? This is why I do these stories, guys, because it works around the world. Human beings, they say and do the same things. Married women do the same things. Guys do the same things. That's why this is relevant to dudes around the world. I think that's why you guys like watching this channel. So I'll be on the lookout for any updates. If you guys see updates, let me know. But for all intents and purposes, she's toast. I'd like to hear more about him striking and all that. But even if we don't, there you go. So don't ever fall for the gaslighting and all that bullcrap, guys. All right, guys, that's it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. And guys, if you find a good story you want to share, definitely send it my way. strongsuccessfulmale@gmail.com. And if it's a good one, I'll definitely cover it. And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. I'll catch you next time.